welcome to a new edition of the Lewa Show. I'm coming to you from Port Moresby at the APEC House. And I have a guest here with me, Professor Glen Mola. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Lewa.
And welcome to the show.
Good.
We'll just start maybe by way of introduction, if you can tell us a little bit about yourself for the sake of our viewers.
Yeah, so I'm a doctor of about 48 years in UPNG mostly. I'm a Papua New Guinean from AROB. And I've been teaching medical students and caring for women, mostly in the national capital, since 1987. So that's about 32 years now.
You're an expert in this field then.
Well, it comes upon you after many years.
Household name too. Everyone knows Professor Glen Mola, or Dr. Mola as you're more affectionately known.
Yes.
Did you choose this career path? How did you find yourself down this path?
Gracious. So we're looking at 50 years ago.
Yes.
And I can remember being a year 12 student and wondering what on earth I was going to do, as often happens. And so I got some good marks in year 12, and everyone said, well, the most difficult faculty to get into is the medical faculty. So why don't you have a go?
So purely based on your
good marks in year 12.
But no interest in the whole medical field?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to, usual thing of the young person, I want to do something good,
right.
you know?
Yes.
Everyone starts off altruistic and wanting to do something good. So those things came together, and
so when did it come to light that you had made a good decision?
Oh, when I graduated, everyone said, well, we really need you now.
Yes, yes.
You don't have to look for a job. It's about the only university education where you really don't have to look for a job.
You're needed.
You're assured of a job.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we need you. We all need you. So I've brought you on the show, we've invited you on the show to discuss a few medical issues that are affecting our country at present. One of the first things I wanted to talk to you about was obviously health worker education,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Especially the nurses and the doctors.
Yes.
How is that going for our country?
Yes, so it's not just the nurses and the doctors, it's community health workers to start with, because about 50% of our health workforce are community health workers. These are our basic nurses. Anyone who's not from Papua New Guinea will think that they're a community worker. They're not actually. They're a basic nurse in our health system. And they account for, as I said, 50% of our health workers. So they're really quite critical. And the training is in the hands, 90% of the training is in the hands of church agency schools, which are very unsupported by our government. And thank you for the churches. I think we should say that over and over again in our health system. Thank you to the churches for tireless work over decades. And one of the things that they do is they train all the community health workers for our country. And if anything is going to come out of this interview, if anyone looking at it can make decisions about supporting community health worker education, please, because a lot of these church agencies don't have the financial resources to do it as well as it could be done. And so more support, please. Coming on to nurses, it's very difficult to know just where we are with nurses, because we've established some new schools, but nurse education is being done at various levels of quality around the country in these various schools. And then the HR plan for nurses is also, I don't see it as being well done. For example, I was in Mount Hagen 10 days ago.
So was I last week.
Right, and Hagen told me, the Provincial Health Authority in Hagen told me they'd advertised, because they had 12 vacancies, right, for nurses in the Provincial Health Authority, and they had 600 applicants.
Wow.
And then this week I was in Goroka, and they had 93 vacancies, and they had 400 applicants. So you just wonder, don't you, now where are we with nurse education? We can't be just training lots of nurses, because we need nurses, but then not have positions for them to work
go
in.
into, yes.
And especially when they graduate, you know, when you're any kind of technical person, and you graduate, you need to develop your skills rather than switch them off for a year or two while you look for a job, because you'll lose the skills very quickly.
Yeah, you've got to be practical, like practicing them every day.
You need to be practicing them. And for doctors, this is also a big problem. I mean,
well, you're dealing with human lives.
Yes, we're dealing with human lives. We need to do it properly. So doctors go through this very long-winded technical education. You're out of year 12, and then we do this 5-year university program, and then we do this 2-year like apprenticeship program called the residency, and then you have to look for a job. And it's really difficult because, and I think it's difficult for the nurses too, by the story I've just told you, and it's probably difficult for some of the community health workers as well, because there are 22 health authorities in this country, and then there are all the NGOs, and it's private, and then there's the church agencies. So there's no sort of central agency where you can go and say, here I am, I'm a newly qualified doctor, tell me what's available. There's no way you can go find that out. And so deployment is a really big problem. And so
there's a gap between the graduates and then actually...
And the training. I mean, graduate, then you do the practical training, and you just get all your basic skills. And I see lots of doctors having a gap of 6, 8 or 9 months between finishing that training and securing themselves a job that will put their skills into good use. And some of them don't at all, actually. Some of them hang around Port Moresby doing a session at Paradise Hospital twice a week or something, and then going off to work at SOS in a mine site where they don't use any of their skills, actually, because they're just in an aid post.
So isn't it ironic, because we do need doctors, like especially in the rural areas?
I've talked to every Minister for Health for the last 20 years about this issue, and all of them, and secretaries for health too. I've seen a lot of secretaries for health, I can tell you. Going back to Dr. Roy Scragg in 1970.
So before my time.
But they all said, that's a fabulous idea, Dr. Mola. We'll need to do something about that. And then we've not done anything about it.
So we've got another topic that I wanted to discuss with you, but we'll take a short break.
Okay.
You are watching The Lewa Show. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Lewa Show. We're coming to you from the APEC House in Port Moresby, and I'm here with Professor Glen Mola.
Thank you, Lewa.
So we were just talking about the gap between graduating and then trying to get people aligned with jobs for doctors, nurses, and community workers. We've established that the problem is deployment.
Yes.
Right?
That's right, yes, because training is a sort of national function, but health is decentralized. So we have these 22 provincial health authorities, and there's no coordination or collaboration to take on all the graduates. So the graduates look around, and some of them are Moresby kids, some of them are village kids, were, and now how do they get a job? You know, do they write to WEWAC, or do they write to Mount Hagen, or do they write to everybody at the same time, or what do they do?
But it's not that we don't need them.
Yes.
It's just that
they don't,
how do you match
linking them up with
the
jobs,
So what do you think can be done?
Well, there has to be a national clearinghouse where everyone that wants doctors gets together and puts all the vacancies in one place where you can go and see when you're a graduate looking for a job, and where you can go and see all the jobs available.
Fantastic. So we do need to look into that, deployment, the right people to the right places.
Yes.
All right, our next medical issue, population and population growth, right? Women's roles, men's roles, it's obviously a problem here in our country. What's your take on this?
Well, my take on it is population growth is absolutely out of control, and we have a national population policy, but we're not following it. And there are so many things pulling us in the direction of increasing our population, young people's views. I mean, every time I run a class and we look at what's happening to population, doubling every 25 years, and then we sort of ask the class, now, what do you think would be a good population for our country? And everyone says an impossible number, like, how about 10? But we're already past 10 at the end of this year.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And so we'll be 20 in another 20 million, another 25 years.
Yeah.
And because of population momentum, even when we start having only 2 kids each, we double population one more time, because mummy and daddy have 2 kids, and 2 and 2 equals 4.
Yes.
I mean, that's a very simplified way of looking at demography, but that's what basically happens in the first generation, that where the total fertility rate goes down to 2. You still double your population one more time. And so everyone wants everyone else to have 2 children, but I want to have 4.
Some want to go 6 to 8.
Yeah. And so it's just not a terrible situation. We have to start getting the message across to kids in grade 1. And of course, everyone needs to get into grade 1 to have some education.
Right,
I mean,
yes.
not even everyone's getting into grade 1. But we have to start talking about these things in grade 1. In a different way, of course, than you would to grade 6, and a different way you do to grade 10 and 12. But the message that 2 kids is the right number.
So you agree that it should be 2 children?
Well, perhaps 3 for some, because there is a bit of infertility, and making the average then so that everyone, the total fertility rate ends up as 2. And it's really a national emergency. There's no government that can cope with a population that's doubling every 25 years. Even if it's the most fabulous government we could ever contemplate, even this heaven government. We still can't cope.
Yes.
Health services can't cope, education can't cope, roads can't cope, airports can't cope, TMVs can't cope, cities can't cope, sewerage systems can't cope,
yes.
nothing can
it's
cope.
It's just a ripple effect, or
Nothing
it rains
can
down.
cope as long as you're just doubling your population every 25 years. And Mr. Marape is the famous saying of the richest black Christian country, and that's where we're heading for, but we'll never get there. We'll never get there, because you look at all the rich countries, the ones that have gone from poor to rich, like South Korea, they reduced their population growth rate to 2 kids each, stable population, then they get rich.
Well, so culturally, we wouldn't be able to say, the one-child policy that might have worked.
That's the emergency.
That's sort of an extreme, isn't it?
Yes, because that's when China saw that if they doubled their population one more time, that their country would collapse in a heap of famine and killing each other.
So we're not there yet instead of emergency, but we should really be proactive, is what you're saying.
Why wait to get to that point where you have to start aborting fetuses and stopping people having babies by law? I mean, it's just, that's bad. We don't want to ever get to that. That's like the cliff.
Yes. We're just about
you take
to fall,
one more step and you're off the cliff.
Falling through.
We mustn't get to that point. So we must start having less children each, and we should be aiming for just 2 each by the next generation.
Next generation.
Yeah.
So my generation technically should only have 2 children.
Yes.
I don't have children, but thank you for the heads up.
Yes. I'm sure.
Good to know where the limits
are. I'm
are.
sure now what your ideal family size is. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that, Dr. Mola. So what are women's and men's roles then? So for a male, what is a male's role?
Well, I think, there's all sorts of views of male roles, but I think traditionally, when you decide to get married, then you have responsibilities as well as obligations to care for the family. I mean, women care for the family, but men have a role in caring for the family. And I think in every society in PNG, that when you get married, you build a house. Mm-hmm. You don't start having the kids in your tambu's house, or your sister's house,
or your parents' house,
mummy and daddy's house, for heaven's sake. I mean, and so many kids are doing that these days, and I think it's just not right. If you're going to get married, you need to be a man, for heaven's sake, and you need to be. If you want to be a dad, then you must come up with saying, "Papa, Papa belong, family na, Papa belong house na." Look out in family, or saying Papa through. And papas have houses. You don't want the part through Papa, so it's not house for you. And when you ask young people, so where are you living? Oh, I'm living in my own house. So you built the house? No. So whose house? Who built the house? Oh, it's my uncle built it. So is your uncle dead? No, he's still alive. So it's actually not your house?
Yeah.
It's uncle's house. And then there's dead silence, of course, at that point.
It's education too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Educating.
Yeah.
So if that's the male's role, a woman's role, do you think? Apart from the fertility
Men never have babies.
controlling.
I'm very pleased I'm never going to have a baby because I've seen literally, well, every year we have 15,000 births at the labour ward at PMGH where I teach and care for the women. And so every year I see at least half of those, I suppose.
So that's a lot of births. So family planning.
40 years, you know, multiply 100,000. I've seen 100,000 births perhaps. And so I will never do that, but I've seen it over and over. It's not easy. The first baby is really quite a challenge to a woman's body. Your body never goes back to what it was.
I've heard that many times.
Yeah, something to consider.
So as a woman, family planning would be an option?
Well, I think when you see that you think, I think this would be a nice person to be my lifetime partner, and then it becomes mutual.
Yes.
You should never get a pregnancy in the first year of that relationship. I think the agenda in the first year of the relationship is to get to know your partner well. And so know him or her when he's happy, sad, mummy dies or favorite aunt dies, so you're in mourning, so you understand how the person reacts to that challenge.
Yes.
And crisis, and when you're sick, and when you're well, and when you're stressed, and when you can't cope, when you're cross, you all get angry on occasion. I think you need to get to know your partner in every aspect of life.
Before making that decision to have a child?
Yes, of course.
I agree, entirely.
Well, I wish all young people would be so quick to agree, because I see so many, I mean, just about every woman in our labour ward having the first baby hasn't actually organised the marriage yet. So they've got the cart before the horse, really?
Yeah. Well, that's a good way to put it. Cart before the horse. We'll talk more on this because I do want to get further into this. We'll take a quick water break. You're watching The Lewa Show. We're coming to you from the APEC House with Professor Glen Mola. Welcome back to The Lewa Show. We're here at the APEC House with Professor Glen Mola. And you were giving some tough advice there about relationships.
Yes. And one point about this, the adolescent or the growing up relationships, I see over and over again that girls seem to think that the way to get that boy that I really, I've just fallen in love with him, infatuated, I just can't do without him, I have to make him my lifetime partner, and the way to get him is to get pregnant. And what usually happens is the boyfriend doesn't actually want a pregnant girlfriend.
Right.
And so he, dastia, was that all said? Dastia, go pidis.
Oh, that's sad.
Oh, sorry. Oh, he's not picking up any. That's not the way to get the boy. If that's your life, if you can't, you think this one, it has to be this one, the way to get him is to go and meet his family and be a really nice best friend and care for him, do stuff for him, make him so he can't do without you.
Right, instead of bringing a child in,
Yes,
which...
because once you get pregnant, then you start throwing up. And then you start looking sort of pregnant. And then you don't want to have sex much anymore.
Yeah, okay.
And that's not what the boyfriend wants.
Hard truths, isn't it?
I'm sorry, yes, girls need to get a grip on reality here, that this is not heavenly, we're not angels, and there are some stuff, that, yeah.
We need to stand our ground as young girls and women. And for the male, if you're serious about building a family, you'd have to go start a foundation on your own first before bringing two other people or more into that picture.
Yes, yes.
That's really good
advice. Get to know your partner. Get to know your partner, and your partner, let him see every part of you, please, because eventually he will or she will, and it's best if that happens before you have a pregnancy, because once you've had a pregnancy, you're sort of committed now, aren't you? And if you're not committed, then there's going to be difficulties in your life forever after, because you're going to have this kid and you're not married to the father or the mother or something. And that just makes life so much more complex. And life is complicated enough, actually.
Yeah, and then of course it adds back to the population and the strain on all resources, as we've just discussed. Okay, moving on to gender issues.
Right, gender issues. So, goodness gracious, I see so many gender issues in my work every day. I have women who tell me that they have to, by me asking master pastem, and Misa talk, say, master who's at there, and of course they mean their husband. And Misa talk, saying, I think one blow master does all star here, please. How about you call him the man of master blow you? I mean, he's your partner. Partner is not the same as master.
As a master.
So that's a problem. Women who respond to like, why you space him next beginning or how much for Christmas? I mean, this is sort of stuff I'm saying just about every hour of every day. Or by me asking master pastel.
So this is like a daily thing for you?
Yes.
Every day? Conversations that you have with
more
women?
Than once a day.
Wow.
And so many women say that sort of stuff. And so where do you go from there? We say, well, yeah, but am by Karim Piginini or you by Karim Piginini? I mean, please think about it yourself first. You need to at least have a view on this. And of course, it will be a collaborative decision, but you must have a view. You know, say, Masim Lewalkin Piginini.
Right, yeah. So in those situations, have you ever had, now I'm just straying a little off topic here, have you ever had the other half come in and sit in on a consultation like that?
Yes, I mean, today.
Yeah. Did they understand then?
Yes, I mean, and there's such a variation in PNG. I mean, some women are absolutely in control, and they say, you need to ask your partner before you sign the tubal ligation form because you think you've had that. Oh no, that's okay. I've already discussed that. And if a woman says that, well then you don't go there anymore. You don't go.
Yeah, it's done. Yeah.
Yes, but some of the young doctors say, but the husband has to sign the form. Well, he doesn't actually. There's nothing in PNG law that says the husband has to sign anything. So we need to play it by. We need to listen and to watch how your client or patient is relating to you and giving you feedback. But at the same time, I think it's the job of health workers to empower women a little when they're feeling that they don't have any decision-making empowerment.
Deep down inside, I think they do know what's right for them. But like you said, it's just giving them that additional push or support to be empowered to make that decision.
Yes.
Yeah.
Decisions about contraception, family planning, looking after the kids. Often kids are taken away from women because big sister wants a boy or something. There's all sorts of stuff that goes on, and if a baby in PNG is not breastfed by its mother, its chance of survival is very much diminished. And these girls that have babies and then go back to school, kids in grade 8, 9, 10 have babies. And mummies and daddies are good, and they take the baby and they give it to somebody or they look after it themselves. But they can't, well, they can actually, but they often don't come along and say, can you help me breastfeed this baby? they just start giving it something mixed with something and the
Sunshine milk or
bottle,
something.
yes. And these babies don't do well. There's quite a lot of research done by my pediatric colleagues, or doctors who look after Guinea, and it shows that the mortality of these non-breastfed children is very high indeed.
Very sad.
Very sad.
So what is your advice in relation to the gender issues that we face?
I think women really need to grow up thinking that they have a definite role in society. I mean, as far as the reproduction goes, they certainly have a biological role, and they need to take
Ownership.
Yes, ownership of that. And by all means, you consult your partner, of course. But at the end of the day, the man's never going to have a pregnancy. And I think that really needs to be. And men, I mean, probably women are not going to build the house, or put the roofing iron on top, or do most of the land clearing or something. Yes, we have roles in society which are not the same, but we collaborate and we consult. And I think the respect of for one for the other means that with regards to reproduction, I think men need to give the respect of ownership to this issue to the women.
Very powerful message there, Professor Mola. Thank you. You are watching The Lewa Show. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching The Lewa Show, and we're coming to you from the APEC House in Port Moresby, and I'm here with Professor Glen Mola. So we're just touching quickly, what is the male's role in family planning? So like a woman can go ahead and make decisions. How can a male support that, or a man?
Well, I think he will give his views about the children, when would be a good time for me with regards having a baby. I mean, we need to do good timing. I see so many women having pregnancies and then, oh, but the husband's overseas on a scholarship or something. Or, well, that's bad timing. Or we're moving back to the village or something. Or, I mean, you need to think about, we all know that pregnancies are about 9 months. So what will we be doing in 9 months' time? Is that a good time to be having a child? So the man should clearly be involved with his life as well, and putting that on the table for us to, by mutual discussion. And then with regards to the actual method, it's usually going to be the woman. We have condoms, but they're not a really good long-term method. It's fine for boyfriend, girlfriend for the first night or something, but for a long-term method of planning a pregnancy, it's usually going to be the woman doing something about it to time when she's going to get pregnant. So I think support. One word, I think support is the word. We make the decision about when it would be a good time to have a baby, and then support you in you timing the pregnancy, because it's your body that's going to do it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Important, very important there. So in terms of obviously conception and all of that, and the resources to do that, brings me to my next question about medical supplies.
Yes.
Before we go.
Yes, medical supplies. It's in the news a lot.
Yes.
And so many times has the Medical Society. When I was the treasurer several years ago, 2014 I think it was, we came out very strongly to point out to this country that the procurement process was not transparent. That somehow government decided that we would like to pay an extra 100 million for the same medical supplies that other reputable suppliers were willing to sell to us for 100 million less. Wow. And we couldn't work out why that was the case. And to this day, it has not been explained. And the supplier that got the contract for 100 million more back in 2014 is still the supplier of 80+% of the drugs used by the public health facilities in this country. And that doesn't seem like a good idea to me.
Doesn't seem right at all.
Doesn't seem right at all. And I've heard that the same supplier, which is called Borneo Pacific Pharmaceuticals, of course, is the name of this company. And congratulations to them for making hundreds of extra millions. But I think it's time, surely, is it, when we're not so, we haven't got so much money these days. The government keeps telling us we're in debt, cash flow is a problem. How about doing medical supplies by international tender and getting the best deal for the quality medicine? And buying the medicine we need rather than the medicine that's cheapest cheapest and you can get the best profit out of. I mean, I go around health facilities. I mean, I mentioned to you earlier in one of our segments that I'd recently been to Chimbu, Western Highlands and Eastern Highlands in the last couple of months. And when I visit these health facilities, Hagen Hospital tells me they're spending 60,000 a month of their trust fund because they can't get the medicine they need through the medical supplies systems. And then I go to rural health facilities and I always have a look at their storeroom. And it's full of drugs that they're never going to use, that's going to expire and they're going to incinerate. But they haven't got the drugs they need. So distribution's a problem, procurement's a problem, distribution's a problem. I really think we need to do it. We've had ministerial task forces on this issue and every one of them recommends international tendering, not just giving it to local suppliers, one of which controls more than 80% of the market.
So you agree then it should be an international?
Yes, it must be an international tender. Yeah. And then we need to distribute the drugs properly.
And the right drugs to the right areas.
Yes, indeed.
So there's no waste and like we just said.
It's not rocket science. It should be quite simple.
Well, I seem
but the problem is if it's the money going into your pocket, of course, well then you do it according to I'd like my pocket to be full, wouldn't you? I mean, we all like our pockets to be full.
Not in that way, though.
Okay.
So, final words before we go. You've shared so much wisdom and experience, so I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Yes, final words. Okay, so young people, please, pregnancies don't make relationships.
Number one.
Pregnancies
do not make relationships.
Yes.
I like that.
A pregnancy is what you have when you've got the relationship and then you want to plan a family. That's what pregnancies are. Okay. Family planning has virtually minimum side effects. There's so much concern in this country, in the community, that people are worried about side effects of modern family planning. There are expected effects of family planning. The major one, of course, is you don't get pregnant. But there are other expected effects of family planning, especially the hormonal ones that the women use, because the way they work is that they stop your ovaries from ripening an egg every month.
Okay.
And when your ovaries don't ripen an egg every month, you don't have the rubbish coming out in the same way because there's no rubbish. You don't have an egg that ripens, it doesn't die, it doesn't get discarded. You just stop, you just stay pristine, you just clean orgata, just stop. No, that's all nogat sikmun because nogat pibaya. And women get worried that, oh, the rubbish must be accumulating inside or something. It's not. This is an expected effect of using hormonal family planning. Please expect it. It's good. Just like when you were 11 years old, you didn't have rubbish coming out.
Right, yes.
You just like that again for a little while.
For a little while.
And when you're pregnant, of course, you don't ovulate. So there's no periods.
Right.
That's normal, physiological. In fact, family planning mimics a pregnancy in some ways. It just suspends ovulation, defers it. You know, mawim kiaola samla liglig time or semi-belia. So don't be worried about it. And if you have a concern about your family planning, please come look in one nice doctor or midwife or expert long. Nongan go talk long Mary lo stapla hubside or Mary stapla hubside na harim all long story sabla long story of them. Oh, mikisi implants so it's lahan lumidai. No, I mean, you get the implant and then you don't use the arm because the implant's there. Of course, your muscles waste away because you're not using the arm.
But not because it's
not
dying.
Because the implant's there, but because you're just not using it. when you put the implant in, start doing muscle building exercises, and then you'll have a stronger arm where your implant is.
Carry on as normal, really.
Carry on as normal,
Yes.
please.
So family planning.
Yes, population.
Yes.
Everyone in this country. I mean, I want a nice country for my grandchildren, and this will not be a nice country if we have 40 million people. I'm sorry. And we have 10 million by the end of this year, and there are parts of PNG which are not so nice now because of some degree of overpopulation already. And so let's just slow down. There's no rush to become 20 million.
Yeah.
Just like there's no rush to have 4 children. In fact, don't have 4 children. Last message is 2 is the right number, because then you might be able to educate them well and they will look after you well later on. You have 4 and you don't educate them, and then they can't look after you when you're old.
And it's a vicious cycle.
A vicious
really.
cycle of rascals and teenage pregnancies and not being proud of your children because you've never helped them achieve what they should have been able to do, because God gave them potential, but you never helped them actually achieve it.
Fantastic. Thank you so very much, Professor Mola. That was very powerful. I learned a lot in this segment, so I thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure having you here on The Lewa Show.
Good.
Thank you, everyone. You are watching The Lewa Show. We've come to the end of this segment here with Professor Glen Mola in Port Moresby at the APEC House. We will see you next time on another edition of The Lewa Show.